Hi, welcome to Faster Forward live on Facebook and YouTube. And with me today is Tom Doyle. Tom, welcome to Faster Forward.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's so good to see you again.
I know it's been ages and we've all been stuck at home during the pandemic. How have you been doing during our plague year?
Well, doing well. All things considered, doing well. I got my internet. I have a house. What more can I ask? Getting some writing done, and I have a new book out that just came out. So that's exciting.
Yes. Let's talk about that for a little bit. The book is Border Crosser, and yep, there it is. And it's a fascinating book. It's been called a transgressive story in one review, which is an interesting title. This started as well, why don't you tell us a little bit about it before we get into it?
It has a sort of epic 16-year saga that it went through. It started as a short story back in 2003 at Clarion. And it was during the meltdown week at Clarion, week 4, when people really start to get kind of, the emotions are running pretty hot during that part of Clarion usually. And I was going, okay, you mofos, I'm going to write something and really show you, And so I wrote this story called Crossing Borders. And that created the main character of Border Crosser. And she has a borderline personality disorder with a strong emotional amnesia component. She doesn't remember her loyalties. So, and she's thrown into situations to cause chaos. Well, so I write this. It was a bit of a difficult write, but I write it out, and I'm very worried because at Clarion instructing that year is James Patrick Kelly. And I'm sure you know him. And he was telling us, I'm going to show you the blue line of death. I'm going to show you where an editor would draw that blue line and say, I'm just not interested beyond this point in the story. And so I was very worried. But then it came time for his critique of my story. And he held up the manuscript and goes, there's no blue line of death here. And then he started reading a section of it, quoting it. And that just amazed me. And sure enough, it was my first prose sale. And so from that, I thought, okay, well, I'll write a novel based on this. Well, I did. And that first manuscript didn't go anywhere. I ended up selling first instead American Craftsman and that trilogy. And but once that trilogy was done, I was thinking again, if I were only to do one other book, what would it be? And I go, I really want that Border Crosser book to work. So I revised it up to my current skill set, changed it to first person, and, just basically I had a sort of shelf life deadline that I wanted to get it out this year because nothing ages worse than, someone's vision of the far future when the present is going so quickly. And there were politics and such that were more artifacts of the present. So I really wanted to get it published this year. Ring of Fire Press said, we love this, let's do it. And so got it out just basically in time, just this past month. So
yes, in time for the plague.
Just in time for plague, which is in the book somehow.
Yeah,
there's plague, there's politics, there's all this stuff, but
singularity. There's the singularity.
There's a singularity that goes bad. There's a lot of the classics.
Question I had when I was reading it is the fact that you wrote it is in first person, and you mentioned you changed it to first person. And I was curious as to what drove that decision, because Eris, the main character, is a really unreliable narrator.
There were a couple factors. The first one was kind of as a writer's exercise of, I knew I had to go back and rewrite it top to bottom to bring it up to my standards. It's very difficult to do that. You get very wedded to your darlings in the prose. But if you're changing the person and changing all the verbs, then all of a sudden no particular passage or the words in it are that valuable anymore. Everything is subject to change. So that was the starting impetus, but it also made sense with the character, because it's not only first person, but first person present from third person past, which means, and that's where this character lives. She is all about her in the now, and not in the past. It's very much an I voice of what she is feeling in that moment. She is very meta aware of what's going on with her. That's not the issue. She's in terms of her reliability, but this, she has been, not only does she have these issues, but they've been amplified by her employers in order to cause chaos. And therefore she's aware that she is this sort of person, but that doesn't change the fact that she is this sort of person.
Yeah, where her loyalties do change. Almost the first line in the book is like, now it's Monday morning ship time, so I'm against the Empire.
Exactly. And that was where the book and the story began, with that line.
Yeah.
Just writing that line brought it, the rest followed naturally from that line, that insistence on the now and being in that moment, loyal or not loyal to somebody. And that's where it all started.
Yeah. Now, mention the Empire, and there are various kind of civilizations, organizations, and things going on, because there's the Empire of the New Systems, and there's the Parahumanoid League. There is, and Mars, which is really different than you would expect Mars to be. Earth, which is really different. And then there are her kind of employers, the Asylum. So there's all these factions kind of that she like flips between, with where her loyalties are and everything. Why don't we talk a little bit about your version of the apocalypse? Because it's kind of a way post-apocalyptic.
It's a post-apocalyptic kind of a whole civilization. All of humanity is basically in a post-traumatic stress syndrome about this thing that happened hundreds of years ago, but still is echoing when they came very close to destroying each other. It's the classic AIs with human-like consciousness taking over everything. And somehow, despite these very powerful AIs and their, cyborg allies and these nation states under their control, somehow humanity gets through it, resists, and survives. And the details on that are kind of an underlying mystery of the book, how that happened. But it left everyone, the survival, well, when you have an AI that's basically going by the name The Beast, the group's called the Neo-Fundamentalists, viewed this as kind of a partial fulfillment of the Christian apocalypse, and other religious groups viewed it as their fulfillment of whatever apocalyptic scenarios they have. But at least in the Christian case, it's a partial fulfillment because Jesus didn't show up. So all the other stuff, you had all the bad things happen. Armageddon happens right in the Middle East. The hero of the human resistance makes his stand on the Temple Mount. It's the full apocalyptic script, and yet it falls short. And I studied apocalyptic groups back around the turn of the millennium. I was an intern at the Center for Millennial Studies, and it's very interesting what happens to a group when their apocalypse is disappointed in some respect. You would think this was not a disappointing one. It did happen. In terms of a lot of the script, but it's still not quite there. This unleashes both negative energies and creative energies. And so you have people going out and building the new celestial Jerusalem in orbit around Mars. You have people setting up a society a la Dune with, limits on how post-human people can go and what sort of AIs you can create. You have all this stuff, but you also have, this negative sort of energy where people are kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop and for what really is going to be the culmination of humanity's story. So yes, the apocalypse is a steady thread through this, and particularly on Eris's home planet, which is colonized Mars, which was settled by the Neofunds, and where she had a very antagonistic relationship with most of her peers back in the day when she was a schoolgirl.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, one of the other things in there, well, how about this? Why don't you go ahead and read something from this? I want to let people know with the book that there is a lot of sex and violence and adult language and adult situations in this book. So you need to be aware, but you're going to give us a PG-13 reading.
I'm going to give the PG-13 version. So here, let me call up the text here. Now, the setup for this is we begin with her on a starship cruiser that's taking a peace delegations from the Empire and the League. And she's been put on the ship basically to cause chaos. She's already seduced a member of the Empire. But of course, that is now in flux and changing. And so after the opening where she's having her liaison with the council from the Empire, she's now decided to go to a party instead of rendezvousing again with him. And it's a onboard ship party, and the usual sort of everyone is there. It's very, very fancy, very James Bond. And so with that beginning, I will commence. I love parties, except when they bore me, which is often. I always love to dress for parties because I'm good at it. My credo, a secret agent should always dress as colorfully outrageous as possible and accentuate her controversial features. I have many controversial features to choose from. I am as meta-aware of my body as I am of my psyche. I am low-gravity tall, with simply endless legs, with which I affect a fragile yet still sensual quasi-lameness in high grav, as if I were always in heels that were too high. My breasts are ample in absolute terms, but my tall frame allows me to control their emphasis. My fingers are long like extended claws. But my most controversial feature is my face. Despite whatever array of piercings I sport, it remains the face of a precocious, prurient child, the kind of face that makes the most innocent of lollipops look naughty. All the genders with a taste for human females find me repellent and irresistible at the same time. I am the bad thing that they aren't supposed to have. Other than some casual self-cutting, I never vary my physical form. Major body alteration is a sport for others. I never vary my gray eyes. I vary hair, long and red tonight. I vary dress and identity. Clothes make the woman. I sweep into the glorious retro aristo ballroom, its lavender walls a wonderful contrast against my shimmering sunset dress. A pert little crew girl, what's she doing later, announces me as the Countess from the blah blah system beyond the spiral arm. Exactly where beyond doesn't matter in my Countess legend, so long as it's too far away to be relevant to this provincial audience. The Countess story pleases all. Only an aristocrat can screw and be screwed with impunity. Feeling aristocratic, I decide to screw a parahumanoid leaguer. The leaguers trade everywhere, and their preference for deep space over planetary surfaces has allowed their bodies some interesting alterations from Terra Norm. I don't know yet tonight whether I am for or against the League, and I don't care how I felt before. I only care that the League is a major power. I've told the Imperial Council that the League covets me, and it isn't nice to lie. Perhaps he'll think I'm trying to pay my debt. A league representative will be more difficult to ensnare than the council was. That dull screw was mine with a sad story, some dirty words, and a smile. Despite my title of countess, if I try such a direct approach with a leaguer, he'll assume I'm the ship's whore, and a quick and simple money transaction does not suit my purposes. Still, I'll need a trader's mindset. The merchant-dominated leaguers have a mania for possessing things others desire. I have to show a leaguer that everyone desires me. I begin my campaign. I accept a dance with the ship's captain, a lovely woman who has let her hair go gray to appear more distinguished. I dance with only technical proficiency. Too much strength and ease in my low-grav legs would seem threatening. I make my partners feel graceful, so all desire a turn. My sweet captain, can't you do something about this music? Don't you find it pretty? She asks. Yes, but pretty is boring. Why not music compiled from the notes and the dying screams of 1,000 species? Something you can really move to. The captain's laugh is belly deep. The countess is already notoriously outré. Is it true, Captain, that you are barred from intimacy with your passengers? I think you know, Countess. Oh, damn! How tedious for both of us! I bend and kiss the captain full on her tight-lipped mouth. A jealous, disapproving murmur simmers in the crowd. The captain's blush is not very distinguished. Of course, once the voyage is over, it's a different matter, she whispers. Of course, but now our dance is done, and I bow and go on to select my next partner. From the leaguer delegation come snatches of trade talk and only glances in my direction. I can read the tiniest cues of word or expression, but these damned hucksters instinctively avoid flashing their interest in anything and thus driving up the cost. Such discretion means covering up much of their beautiful translucent skin, lest the visible beat of their pulses betrays their desires. I choose one of the council's aides in the imperial delegation, who snaps to attention when I approach and falls into the dance with a nearly marching cadence. Young and tender, strong and stupid, like the Empire. His hair has the blonde curls of an Alexander with chlorophyll-infused skin. His poorly repressed desire will help with the leaguers, and I can poke at the council through him. Your ram ships remind me of triremes. Do you know about triremes? No, madam. Oh, great. He's another dull one. I believe the council was expecting you at his cabin this afternoon. How is the council's back? I'm afraid I left it messy. I've never seen his back, madam. Really? I thought the council would enjoy showing his back to a boy like you. He must be embarrassed. He likes boys? No, dear. He likes you. The imperial sense of honor is only exceeded by the numerous imperial phobias. I feel the innocent boy gulp, and his pale green cheeks darken with red shame. Charming. Perhaps him and the crew girl. Later. Of course, you'll have to pilot that ship, I add. I begged him to show some fight, but he didn't leave a mark on me. Before the last note of the song, the Ave furtively bows and exits. If he doesn't hold his tongue, all will be well. A leaguer's eyes swing toward me, then away, perhaps considering an approach. I turn away from his furtive gaze of acquisition and select a dancing master to help me put on a show. I let go of any restraint. We propel athletically across the floor. A marvelous slashing pain shoots up my straining legs as I dance. Red shoes syndrome takes me. Whoosh, whoosh, whooshing. Faces, alien and human, blur together, all looking at me, wanting to be me or screw me. Never a clear distinction. But Counsel Dullscrew has arrived. Did he see me with his aide? And he trails me across the ballroom floor. Not the attention I want. Where were you? He hisses. You said you loved me. You said you'd leave with me. Useless, I hiss back, enjoying the word's ambiguity. I'm insulting him, but perhaps he'll think I'm bemoaning the futility of escape. The enemy annoys me by always trying to induce some petty form of dissonance, usually guilt. I say lots of things. My words only have meaning in terms of my assignment. Tonight, I don't care about the Empire. I need to talk to someone else to keep the council out of my face and get a leaguer's attention. I bow towards the dancing master and leave the floor. A cluster of squid-like floaters hovers nearby. More uselessness. They have no interest in ancient literature, modern art, or my other soiree gambits that mysteriously elicit the political views of others. And a leaguer will place no value on floaters' sexual tastes. For screwing, floaters' tentacles have enormous potential, but hanging by suspension boots while waiting to become a tedious alien sandwich sex sacrifice is not how I hope to end this voyage. Will the floaters abide by one of their conflicting treaties and enter a regional war? Unknown. But beyond the floaters stands a smirking problem. I knew the hegemony would send an ambassador, but I didn't expect it to be this person. He's remained out of my sight until now, as if waiting for the most precarious moment. I met him on a previous mission under some other aristo ID. My report on him then. He is a hawk-nosed, squat little man from a high-gravity world, ugly and stale-minded, without poetry in his soul. Not usual for a frequent spacefarer. He enjoys addressing his lady, the hegemon, without ceremony or flattery, which leads to disputes with less direct courtiers. His form is dull, his thought sharp, and neither ever varies. Despite his efforts to hide it, he shows evidence of childhood trauma. Perhaps in response, he decided his loyalties as a young man and will not change them come hell or psychosis. I've known him well, and I knew his wife well. He may hate me because of his spouse's death and his own BS. He'll see through my minor changes. Better that he tried to kill me than question my identity and spoil everything. I relax and defy augury. The straightest path to disaster is the most fun. He might actually help by causing a scene. Leaguers covet the Paleo-Terran apotheosis culture and tastes of the hegemony, but can never master the casual disregard of wealth and price that comes naturally to the hegemonians. The council's rage means little to the League, but if the hegemonian ambassador freaks out over me, that'll mean I'm worth attention. Before I can approach the ambassador, he's striding toward me, and I allow it. Oh, but he dresses so atrociously plain. His suit's color is static black. The fabric shows signs of manual labor. He halts, face tilted up toward me, and he's already talking. My lady, Countess, is it? You're particularly stunning this evening. He never stops smirking. Even I can't tell whether he's sincere. It reassures me that you look the same as always, Ambassador. What the hell are you wearing? Are you being paid enough? He doesn't miss a beat. I see the council is hot on the chase. Should I be jealous? You can be whatever suits you, but it might suit us both to find another place to drink. He's not causing a scene yet, so best to leave our tete-a-tete to the Leaguer's imagination. We leave the council as he attempts not to smoke with rage in public. We walk arm in arm into a private viewing parlor, which shows the stars as they would have appeared if the ship were in real space instead of FTL. Delightful artifice. Yes, a leaguer will definitely assume that the ambassador is seeking a liaison with me. And perhaps he is. As the liaison could be murderous, I press my right hand into a fist for 3 seconds, signaling a subtle shift to the molecular structure along the edge of my nails that will make them sharper than diamond. A double click of my teeth commences a similar dental shift. I admit that my teeth and claws are as much affectation as weaponry, but I have no blade on hand. I'm ready for combat, but the ambassador doesn't strike. Instead, with his usual lack of delicacy, he breaks the silence. My lady, do you know what you are? A rhetorical question, Your Excellency. Am I to be called fascinating, impossible, a goddess, a Messalina? You're on a well-worn path, but that doesn't mean I'll let you walk there. The ambassador shakes his head. I apologize. Some of you have a meta-awareness of your condition. I thought you might be one of them. The enemy, the bloody enemy. Of course I have meta-awareness. I'm all meta all the time. My only condition is that I cannot stand the importunities of small, peevish, presumptive former bedmates. Again, I apologize. I've learned much since your visit to the hegemony, much that I would share, but it was wrong of me to offer now. The ambassador never loses his smile, but I smell something dirty from him, something that stinks like purity and past failure, and there's something in his eyes, and if it's pity, I will kill him. But we are rudely interrupted by the lightest of sounds, the footfall of a League representative. No door in most commercial ships can keep a leaguer out. To say he's both rich and politically important is particularly redundant within the League. He has opened his coat. Negotiations are over. His ever-young skin is so fine and translucent that, in this perfect light, I can see the outlines of his organs and ribs. His hair is like tinted glass, so cold. To touch him will be like etching crystal. Lady, you must dance with me. And he takes my hand and leads me back out and onto the floor. Oh my, yes, I am allied with the League. Once upon another time, when stupid Robin recovered from her OD, the doctors told her she was pregnant. She told them to get it out of her alive and give it to someone else, please. So they did. Those who paid her doctors were not her family. She saw her parents only once more. They came all the way from Mars to the hospital to sign some legal papers. They were ready to be rid of her, especially her mother, the whore. She missed her daddy, though. They gave her a lot of psychological tests. She was pretty sure she fooled them. They gave her some drugs, which didn't seem to do anything good or bad. Then they offered her a job. After the party, Boy Toy the Leaguer leads me back by the arm to his cabin. Before anything else, he brings out a border scanner. The luxury model, of course, a rectangular diamond with faceted corners and platinum trim. The hand-shaped depression is a functional illusion. The device doesn't require contact, but works best within arm's length. Interesting sex toy, I quip, planning to visit some new world. Please, our insurers insist. Already answered everything before boarding. Most everyone undergoes a psych scan before boarding a vessel and on arrival at a planet or a major station, but I allow the repetition. This machine has never stopped me crossing a border, and no one ever wins an argument with the League's insurers. Most of the time, I'm a Schrodinger's cat of uncertain intention, though unlike that probabilistic feline, I stay uncertain when someone is peeking at my thoughts. Instead of the usual list of questions, Boy Toy has one. Or, well, actually two. Do you intend any harm towards me or the League? I answer, no. And the scan confirms I'm not lying. Yet. We have sex, and I mentally note all the wonderful details for my report. Sex doesn't tire Boy Toy. I don't think Leaguers sleep much, but it does seem to loosen him up. So we sit on the bed in full lotus postures. Leaguers are very flexible and talk. And that seems like a good place as any to pause and stop. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. That really gives people a real sense of what the book is, because it's a very dense book, and that passage covers a lot of what's, it's got a lot of layers of things going on, which makes me wonder, what kind of research did you do for this book? There's so much in it.
This book, unlike most, you remember the American Craftsman stuff. That was research intense. Every book, the first book in particular, I immersed myself in Americana. This book was just a lifetime of experience, mostly. Really no research, just being a magpie of my own cultural exposures, of my own interests and obsessions, and giving them over to Eris, but twisting them a bit for her taste rather than mine. But they are things. And one thing I should say is the tropes, there are a lot of the space opera tropes themselves are being a bit twisted in here. And one thing that's reduced is she has a thing about names. And so she assigns names like Empire and Leaguer and Council because she views giving names as a very intimate, personal thing and a way of allowing others to manipulate her. If she gives someone a name or allows them to tell her the names, then she feels like that's the nose of the camel under the tent to some kind of neuro-linguistic muckery with her mind. So that's why... but by reducing it to that, it becomes very much seeing the sort of template of space opera laid bare. It's no longer making up strange alien name. It's all the usual tropes, but they're being filtered through a very unusual character.
Very unusual character. Yeah. And she does stuff to her own mind.
She does.
During the book. And, she goes through a lot of change from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. And some of that she does to herself. And some of it just happens from the experiences she goes through. And, there's a lot.
Yes.
With her parents and on Zanj with the feral kids that's a trip.
She does indeed. The story is both, there's something in no drama where the present is a compression of both the past and future in the current moment. And in a way in this story, she is recapitulating the scenes of her past life at the same time as she's moving forward against her employers and vengeance, but also moving forward in this quest to change herself into someone who's never going to be, just a normal and what you would call a good person in a normal sense. But she is moving in a direction, a kind of J.G. Ballard direction of character, where she is achieving greater complexity and greater selfness, a selfness that is not the Hollywood happy ending, but is the ending, the trajectory that she needs to go to in her quest.
Yeah, the what she follows is very true to what she is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And deepens it and makes it if she doesn't have a morality as such, she has an aesthetic. And she, within that aesthetic, is an artwork that she is trying to perfect on her own terms.
Yes, because she is an artist.
She is an artist. She's an artist who works
strange
in
art.
a strange art. She works both in media involving human and alien tissues and fluids and mutating them to create scenes, but also in a kind of literal living tableaus of people and arranging emotional constellations and situations in a dramatic way that suits her.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed the book.
Oh,
what I want to do for a little bit is talk about a short story of yours I read that I think is a new one that's just out this year, which was Noiseman.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I found that fascinating.
Well, for folks who do what you do, which is interviews, who work in media, it's one that Jim Freund found fascinating as well for similar reasons, because it is about the story concerns a boy, a kind of boy genius at the time of the outbreak of World War II, and also the legendary War of the Worlds Halloween broadcast.
Yes.
Who, in particular, he's a genius for radio and sound devices. And he achieves, this isn't a spoiler, I don't think. It's something that's good to know. He is able to achieve a kind of radio first contact years before, but that's only the beginning of what happens.
From 1938 through 1947, I think.
Yes.
And they talk about reading the science fiction and the writers then, and the thing that struck me in it was the way he has sound and music is so much a part of him, and it just, because I know music is a big part of you.
Yeah, and even more so, even more so now than when I originally wrote it. It was like going along with my own learning then, and it was also related. There's a music chapter of James Joyce's Ulysses, the Sirens chapter, which deals with sound and noise and music, and that was an inspiration as far as the descriptions. But I just to make it very clear that his sensory, he's not blind, he sees fine. Mm-hmm. So this isn't the worn out trope of a visually impaired person becoming more sensitive to auditory phenomena. But he does live in an auditory world. That is the richest part of his universe. And it's in music, it's in the technology that he's interested in, and it's the way he hears people. He is, in a sense, a human lie detector as far as his ability to pick up intonation differences when people talk. And so he is a prodigy. There is an aspect too of, I don't know if you ever read Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie, but the character in that had big ears, and so had a sort of magical realist level of hearing ability. And it does deviate from hard SF in terms of his abilities are just a little notch towards the magical realist as far as what he can do in terms of hearing and what he's able to achieve technologically.
Yeah. And this takes us into Bell Labs during the war, and Alan Turing's in it. And
now there was some research. You want some research. And a lot of research went into that one.
I bet.
The Bell Labs, I had to map out where that was and how the High Line looked. And when Turing was actually in New York, he was actually in New York. Oh, and people can find this short story now. It used to be it was first published in my collection, but it's now available online at Chasma SF magazine. And if you go to my website, there should be a live link to that version.
That's where I found it and read it.
Oh, excellent. And you saw the wonderful illustration that Jose Baitis did for it.
Yeah.
He's done great illustrations for Chasma. And so it's had now a second life after being a kind of original to the collection.
Yeah. And speaking of music and sound, how's your band doing? Have you guys been able to do any jamming during the pandemic?
Well, fortunately, I mean, we used to jam at my house, but that way too
Yeah.
crammed for no. So, but the drummer has a deck, a big deck, and the weather's been
Ah,
mild. So
yeah.
every 2 weeks ish, we meet outside, socially distanced, all masked, even the vocalist, and we set up outdoors. We jam with a computer to call up the tablature of the chords on a screen. So we set up a TV screen out there with a computer. We call up our songs, and we did, though. You know Sarah Pinsker's Nebula
Yes,
winner,
yes. We
right?
had her on not too long ago.
We did one of the last performances, live performances that some people saw before the pandemic closed everything down in DC at the Velvet Lounge. So we
Ah,
had the experience of being like characters in a Sarah Pinsker novel with that. Uh,
very
but
cool.
we mostly do classic hits, and it's just for fun. But it is we have some really good players at this point, which makes it all the more fun. I am
Yeah.
only allowed because I had the house, so I don't know how much longer they'll let me
Yeah.
come because they're all
Yeah,
so
I'm sure
good.
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
No, they're awesome.
But all the music made me wonder if there's any chance of a Border Crosser, the musical.
I did set up a Spotify playlist. If people are
Ah,
interested, go
where can
look
they find
for.
that?
I think if you look under, I will post a link in the comments later to make sure. But if you
Okay.
search Border Crosser and my name, it should come up as it's a literally says Border Crosser as far as the name of the playlist, and it has some of the songs on there are songs that the band has done. So
Oh,
there's
cool. I'll
that
have to look for that.
because when I was writing it, we this is back in the days of CDs at Clarion, and we didn't have vast playing devices, or at least I couldn't afford one. So I brought my Ziggy Stardust CD, and Moon Age Daydream in particular became the anthem of how I imagined Eris vis-a-vis the world.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah, I
and
can
the
see that.
first opening songs in general became very much the zeitgeist of Bowie channeling through me into the glam persona of Eris.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we have done Moon Age Daydream, and that's one of the few ones that I sing when we do it live. Mostly we have better vocalists for that one, but that one I can get very theatric too.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's fun.
that's a good song to get theatric with.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Well,
that's
Tom, I want to thank you. We're
Oh,
about out
can
of
I say
time.
one
Oh,
other
yeah, go right ahead. Yeah.
one other quick thing? I want to give you this scoop.
Yes.
The
Oh,
folks at
yes, please.
Graphic Audio have me doing a new series for them. It's a
Excellent.
James Bond in the Ancient World series. I will let folks. It only has a kind of working title now, so I won't give it. But when we get the full thing, I will let you guys know. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. It has sort of that craftsman spirit of James Bond / Indiana Jones, plus a touch of anachronistic technology, plus a touch of the supernatural and magic.
And how
It's a
far back?
hoot.
How far back is it?
We are back in the axial age. I'll say that broadly. Okay, we are back in the first millennia BCE.
All
So
right.
and it is a complete hoot to write. I'm having a wonderful time, and I'm looking forward to telling people more about it later
Great.
when I can.
Yep. And you heard it here first.
Yes, this is the scoop.
A fast forward scoop. Hey, Tom, thank you so much for taking time to join us. I really appreciate it. And, I want to let people know, I'm going to remember to subscribe, to like this broadcast, to click on the bell on YouTube, and that way you'll be told when we have more of these coming on. And we're going to have links to Tom's social media and his website and all that kind of stuff in the comments below. So, Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate it, man.
Well, thank you so much. This is always such a fun place to come because you read the book, you know? It's just great to talk about someone who knows what I've been doing. I just love that. That's awesome. Thank you.
And one day we'll be able to hang out again.
Yeah, that would be grand.
That would be good. So for all of us here at Fast Forward, this is Mike Zipser saying, take care, stay home, wash your damn hands.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.